Good evening. We begin with growing dissatisfaction among the American public regarding President Trump's handling of the Iran war. A new survey from the Napolitan Institute reveals a significant shift in public opinion. Only 36% of Americans are now satisfied with the attacks and the war's progression, with 19% reporting they are very satisfied. In stark contrast, 61% express dissatisfaction and 41% are very dissatisfied. The divide is apparent along party lines. 67% of Republicans are satisfied, while 89% of Democrats are unhappy. More than half, 52% of those surveyed, believe the war will ultimately harm the United States in the long term. This poll, released on Saturday, April 4th, indicates that patience with the conflict is rapidly waning. Earlier this week, 57% of respondents were satisfied, a figure that stood at 52% just a week prior. This marks a 9 percentage point drop in satisfaction within a single week. Adding to the complexities, criticism is mounting over the evacuation of 1,500 United States soldiers, their families, and pets from the Fifth Fleet United States Navy base. Reports from the United States portal, NPR, indicate that these individuals were flown to the naval base in Norfolk, Virginia, between February the 28th, the first day of the war, and March 6th. Since then, the execution of these rescue flights has drawn considerable scrutiny. Many soldiers and their families arrived in Norfolk with virtually no belongings, often carrying little more than what fit into a small backpack, according to NPR. The Army portal Legion further details that in numerous cases, soldiers arrived without uniforms, jackets, or even basic hygiene articles. Marine Commander Derek Johnson told the portal Caliber that they came with nothing. In response, several members of Congress have initiated an investigation to determine why the United States Army apparently lacked emergency plans for such a wartime scenario. Demonstrating profound community spirit, the residents of Norfolk have organized donation parties and invited the soldiers and their families to spaghetti dinners, ensuring they have access to essential items. In other significant developments, President Trump intends to allocate funds for the reactivation of the infamous Alcatraz prison in the 2027 budget. An amount of $152 million, approximately 132 million euros, is earmarked for project planning, as outlined in a budget draft released by the White House. The plan envisions transforming Alcatraz into a state-of-the-art correctional facility. This governmental budget proposal will now be submitted to the United States Congress for final approval. From 1934 to 1963, Alcatraz, situated on an island in San Francisco Bay, was America's most feared prison. Known as the Rock, it was considered escape-proof and housed the nation's worst of the worst, including the legendary gangster Al Capone. Its closure in 1963 was partly due to high operating costs, as water and provisions had to be transported to the island by boat, and the old buildings deteriorated rapidly in the harsh sea air. Since 1972, Alcatraz has been a popular tourist destination, functioning as a museum and a protected breeding ground for various bird species. President Trump has also moved to compensate Department of Homeland Security employees affected by a partial shutdown. On Friday, April 3rd, he signed an executive order instructing the department to pay every single employee their lost wages. The order mandates reallocating funds initially approved by the United States Congress for other purposes. President Trump justified this action by stating that the use of these funds has an appropriate and logical connection to the department's responsibilities, seemingly addressing potential legal concerns. Looking ahead, reports from Friday, April 3rd, suggest potential high-level departures within the Trump administration. The United States magazine The Atlantic reported on Thursday, citing sources familiar with White House plans, that Federal Bureau of Investigation Director Kash Patel, Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll, and Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer might be leaving their positions. The exact timing remains unclear, and President Trump has not yet made final decisions. These reports follow the unexpected dismissal of Justice Secretary Pam Bondi by President Trump on Thursday, April 2nd. Hours after her dismissal, the Republican Pam Bondi announced on the platform X that she would work diligently over the coming month to transition her responsibilities to the great Todd Blanche before moving into a significant role in the private sector. She expressed excitement for this new chapter, where she plans to continue her dedication to President Trump and his administration. Bondi described her time in office as the honor of her life, citing a decreased murder rate and the convictions of Antifa members as key achievements. Todd Blanche is expected to take over as Attorney General. Finally, President Trump is planning a substantial increase in military spending. The 2027 budget draft, released by the White House, proposes raising military funds to $1.5 trillion or 1.3 trillion euros. United States media outlets describe this as a record high in recent American history. For the current fiscal year 2026, approximately $1 trillion, or 870 billion euros, is allocated for defense. This governmental budget plan serves as a roadmap, indicating the administration's priorities before the Congress ultimately decides on a series of budget laws for the president to sign into effect. President Trump had already signaled his intention to massively increase defense spending at the beginning of the year. What's your take on Trump faces Iran war backlash, plans Alcatraz and military surge? Share your view in the comments. Do you think this will matter in the next news cycle? This video was generated using artificial intelligence.